Welcome to Everything Made Beautiful with Shannon Scott, where we believe God is present in each and every season of life, the joyful, the messy, the ordinary, and the sacred. On each episode, you'll hear real conversations about faith, redemption, and hope, because we believe that He really is making everything beautiful in its time. Thanks for being here. And now, on with the show.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Everything Made Beautiful podcast. Today, I am excited and have been waiting a good long time to have my friend Ashley Martin on the podcast. Ashley is a teacher turned writer and speaker who knows firsthand the challenges of navigating life's demands while seeking spiritual peace. And 11 years ago, she began a journey of recovery, overcoming addiction through a deepening relationship with God. And since then, Ashley has dedicated her life to helping women find hope, strength, and renewal through faith, drawing from her personal experiences with recovery, infertility, divorce, and blended families. She vulnerably shares her story to connect with women who feel spiritually lost or overwhelmed. Her mission is simple: to equip women with the tools to create a daily connection with God that fosters lasting peace and purpose. And I can say firsthand, because I have spent time with Ashley, that this is not somebody writing about a topic that's kind of a hobby to them. This is someone who is writing and ministering out of a deeply personal place. Ashley and I met because we both have the same person, Lisa Whittle, as our book coach. And now Ashley's book is in the world, and I'm so thrilled that we get to talk about it today. So Ashley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, my friend. It is an honor and a joy to be here. And like you said, we have been planning this for over a year, and I am so excited to finally be here.
Well, I am cheering you on. I'm going to tell everybody to buy the book. It'll be linked in the show notes. I just can't wait for people to dive into your story, because I've both heard it and now read it. And I'm telling you, it is a story of deliverance, mercy, grace, just the love and character of God on display in you. And so I want to just jump in, because this book is pulling no punches. It is right in. You literally open the book with being served divorce papers at a restaurant in front of a friend. So what made you decide to lead with that moment? And what do you want readers to feel when they read it? So like when they open the book and are plunged into your story, what made you decide to go that route?
I am a trained history teacher who does nothing but tell stories for a living. And I'm also Southern, so I can make a story animated and long and drawn out, but above all, entertaining. And so I wanted to capture readers' attention with the depth of where I've been. I wanted to take them to my rock bottom and then show them what God did.
Yeah, so good. Well, and I don't know how many women or people can say, oh, I've had that exact experience, but all of us can probably point to our rock bottom and how we felt in it. And you traced that God hole all the way back to middle school, like losing your grandfather, your family's financial collapse. You talk about sitting in a church pew, but feeling completely alone. I know so many people have had that same experience of, I'm surrounded by people, but somehow I'm alone. So looking back, what was young Ashley searching for really? And then why did alcohol feel like the answer for those almost 20 years?
I was searching for acceptance. I was searching for you think about adolescence and you think of how
Mm,
awkward you feel in your body and you don't know what to do. And so I was looking for direction. I was looking for guidance. I was looking for love. And I just chose to look in the wrong places. And
yeah.
it was no one's fault. Like, it's not, my parents are phenomenal people and they loved me unconditionally and introduced me to Christ, as early as I can remember. It's not their
Mm,
fault. It's just in the tragedy of loss. That's life. That's what we deal with every day. We deal with a broken place. We deal with death. We deal with births. We deal with happiness. We deal with sadness. But as a seventh grader,
yeah.
you don't know how to deal with it. And so back when I was a seventh grader, they didn't take you to counseling or therapy like they do now. We rubbed dirt on it and moved
Yes,
on.
truly.
And so, you know, it's no one's fault. But I I think because I have always been in church,
Mm,
I just did not ask the right questions. I did not speak up for myself. I just
mm,
sat there. And I think that's one of the main reasons today I don't just sit there. I refuse to be
yeah.
quiet. I refuse to be quiet on the miracles that God has done. I refuse to be quiet
Mm,
on how I feel. And that is why God has used my vulnerability and challenged me every day to speak up a little bit louder for him, because I chose
mm,
not to in my adolescent years. And so I began my path of being lost. And I think because I was called into the ministry, I feel like the enemy was after me a little bit more than the average
mm,
kid. Um,
mm,
because I did have a calling on my life. And so instead of stepping into that, I ran from it every chance I got, except for a brief, fleeting few years. And
mm.
I, I hope that my message shows people it's never too late to come back or to answer your call. We all have different seasons, and there is never a moment that we are too old or we are
Yeah,
too
it's good.
broken that God cannot use us in a powerful way.
Mm. And do you, I don't remember if you and I have talked about this specifically, but I think alcohol specifically can get stigmatized in the sense
Mhm,
that like people have to go, alcohol and drugs, I would say,
mhm,
get stigmatized because people maybe need to go to recovery for those
correct.
things. But all of us, in my experience with women over many decades, all
Mhm,
of us cope somehow with
mhm,
that God shaped hole. And
absolutely.
if we're not careful, we cope with any number of things, be it shopping or binging or binge eating or binge watching or whatever the case may be. So, how have you found that people that you've been able to minister to over the years cope in ways maybe that aren't alcohol? Because I think it'd be easy for people listening to go, well, we don't have alcohol in our house, so I don't have to worry about this. But it isn't as about the alcohol as much as it is about the coping. So how have
Yes.
you seen that play out?
Absolutely. Anything that distracts us from going to
Mm,
God and dealing with our problems or what we're dealing with, pain, insecurity, anything like that, food, our phone,
mm,
binge watching TV, another person becoming obsessed in a relationship.
mm,
There are so many distractions today that take us down there. When I was at treatment, one of the counselors was coming out of a gambling problem.
mm.
You have so many other addictions, or even like I just said, distractions. um,
Yeah.
I see some people pouring themselves into their children and
Mm,
and 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 being the super mom instead of dealing with something else that God is challenging them to deal with. So you can take anything. I always wished I was an addict for exercise, but God did not put that in front of me. You know,
Seriously, maybe with having too much money, like maybe I could figure out how to
absolutely.
work through that.
Absolutely. But you'd asked me earlier, alcoholism is genetic. And 2 out of 4
Mm,
of my grandparents died of complications of alcoholism. So it was in
wow.
me. And so
Yeah.
even before I took my first drink, it was dormant in my body, in my mind.
Mm,
And I just chose to let it in. And people, you can, like we said, you can be addicted to anything um today.
mhm. Yeah. So what landed you at 3 a.m. in a detox center with a nurse asking why you're there?
Um After I was served with divorce papers, I was kicked out of my house.
Mm.
And I mean, I even lost my dog in this process. I couldn't even take my dog with me.
Oh,
So I know you would be crushed. So
yes.
I got me a little suitcase. I went to my parents' house. They were at the beach. My poor parents had to come home to let me into their house, so I had somewhere to go. And that morning, the next morning, I asked for help. And so it sent me on this path. Within a few days, I was in treatment. Um, the alcohol had masked high blood pressure. So they had to wake me up
Mm,
a few hours after every so many hours to make sure that I was not having a stroke or a heart attack or anything like that and monitor me.
mm,
And as I'm sitting there with the nurse and she's asking me the same questions that everyone else has asked me, they do that because alcoholics and addicts lie. So they ask us the exact same questions over and over again to see if we
mm,
say the same thing. And I was so broken and I was suicidal and I was at my bottom. I was at my rock bottom that I just gave in and I was like, okay, God, I surrender. Here you go. And so I answered truthfully. I quit lying. I said the same thing over and over. And at that moment, I just felt God lay his hand on me. And I
mm,
just said, I'm here to be the person God created me to be. And she said,
mm.
that's the best answer I've ever heard. And I said, I have no idea where it came from, but I did. I knew it was God. I knew it was the Holy Spirit. I knew he was with me.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, he has I've let him in 100%. There is no step that I have taken from that exact moment to right now that I have not felt his presence.
Mm. Wow. And you draw a parallel in the book between your story and the woman at the well in John 4. And the phrase that you use, which I love because we use it in leadership coaching, is that Jesus called her up rather than calling her out. And that's exactly how we talk about difficult conversations. Literally, I'm in corporate America right now coaching a team, and we're talking about what does it look like to call that person up rather than call them out. So, what does
Mhm.
that distinction mean to someone who has spent years hiding, and how did it reshape how you understood your own story?
Our God is a God of grace and mercy.
Mm,
And every person that he loves is imperfect and just trying to do the best they can. And I forget that. And so in my brokenness, God called me up and he's like, listen, I'm going to fix you if you surrender to me every day. And I'm going to create a life for you that is beyond your wildest imagination.
mm,
And you know what? My girl, I'm going to use you.
mm,
And I've let him even in treatment. And I don't even think I put this in my book, but even in treatment, I was teaching women in my cabin the Lord's Prayer and Amazing Grace and praying with them because they had
mm.
never known God. They had never been to church. And God starts using me on, day 3 at ground level.
Wow.
And I just accepted it and was like, okay, God. And I was honored.
Wow. The picture of at your time of brokenness, you are ministering to other people. I mean, at the end of the day, all of us are ministering out of our brokenness. I think we just spend a lot of time masking that and trying to pretend that's not true. But you got to literally be like, well, we're all here together and we all know why we're here. But to be able to minister to people from that place, what a gift to those other women, Ashley, that you were there, that God appointed that you would be there and intersect with their stories. You have a chapter in the book, I call it the Jonah chapter. And in it, you talk about spending years running. And I thought this was interesting, not because you doubted God's power, but because you doubted yourself. So, how does someone recognize the difference between the kind of running that is not actually about whether or not God's who God is, but it's doubting ourselves and having genuine uncertainty about calling?
Right. Um, One thing I always do is I sit and I make a list of all the things that God has done for me, where he has shown up big time. Sobriety, my husband,
Yeah.
my child surviving at 26 and a half weeks. I write
Yeah.
down these big things, and my path to this book is all God. And I think, okay, God, if I have this calling in me and I look at all that you've done in the 47 years that I've been on this earth, why do I doubt it? Why do I doubt this call? Why do I doubt you? And then second, step out in faith. Do that. Just do one thing that God's calling you to do. And I'm going to tell you, he's going to show up big, and your doubt will dissipate. And that's what happens to
Yeah.
me every day when I make that uncomfortable post that God's telling me to do, or that reel, or send that message to that person, or lead that Bible study that he's calling me to do, or write that book that talks about my rock bottom. And, you know, and you will know this because you love Lisa and she is your coach as well. When I had to write about my intake and my strip search into rehab, she's like, dig deeper, be more descriptive, take them there. And I did it. But I did it to show that, yes, I look like I have my life together right now, but I didn't at one time. And God took that and he made something beautiful out of it. And so I just, for those people out there running from their call, doubting their call, just give God an inch and he'll take care of the rest.
It's good. You also write something that it was particularly, I felt bullied and attacked by it, I will just say, which is where you talk about perfectionism becoming a spiritual trap. And I don't know what you mean, said the perfectionist. But perfectionism basically being the belief that if you can't do something flawlessly, then you should not attempt it at all. And I'll be honest, this is common among women, but it's common especially in ministry among women. I find that a lot of the women over the years that I've been privileged to be alongside have struggled with perfectionism. So, how do you help practically exchange that for grace when grace feels really abstract and like I'm not sure I can get my arms around that, whereas perfectionism is really rooted in control. So how have you helped women and people practically exchange that?
Well, first I had to start with me before I preached it. And I remember this had started in rehab. They made us do these art projects to just get our minds off of what a train wreck our lives were. And I remember purposely gluing things at angles or making them not straight to get me ready for going back to a life that was not going to be perfect or ever perfect. I was mentally preparing myself to accept myself as I was and quit trying to be perfect. So I did it in my little sad artwork as I went back to my life. And so since then, the women that I mentor and help, I just always use myself an example of like, God is Jesus is the only perfect person that lived and walked on this earth. And he never had a perfect day. So why do we think we're going to have a perfect day?
Mm.
And if you've ever read the Bible from beginning to end, let me just tell you, Judges alone should let you know.
Yeah.
Humanity has always been a train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that you're going to be perfect? Why do you think, and I used to do this, and it would send me drinking lots of bottles of wine. I used to expect my whole day to be perfect, everything to fall into place. And then I got sober and became a parent. And just like, and I use this example with the women I mentor, watching your children play sports.
Yeah.
There is no other uncontrollable, painful experience. You just have to have grace for them and sit there and just be like, they're having fun, they're learning, they're learning.
Right. They're not going to be a professional athlete. None of this matters, even though this is brutal. It's fine. Yeah.
They may be getting beat 22-4 in baseball. And, but God is going to teach us a lesson. And then also, let's look at this lesson afterwards. Let's look at the imperfectness of the situation. What did you learn from it? How did you grow from it? Today I just look at life lessons of God just smiling and loving and hugging me on, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, just do a little better. And if you mess up, the world hasn't stopped turning.
One of the things that I love about your approach in your book, Ashley, is that you make no bones about your own poor decisions. You know what I'm saying? Like you own your role in your story. And you talk candidly about marrying your first husband out of fear and financial desperation. And you're real candid that it was not a God-led marriage. How has that level of vulnerability and honesty helped you talk to other women about the valleys that they're in? And I find the more vulnerable and honest I am authentically, the more it frees people to be honest about their own stories. Have you found that to be the case as well?
Absolutely. My first husband was a good man. We just were not meant for each other. There was a large age difference, and he got me at the worst possible period, and we did not work well together. And I think too often we try to speed our life up. We think that, okay, by this, for me, and maybe, and especially for women, I think we have this timeline. Like, okay, I'm going to graduate college, and then I'm going to get engaged, and I'm going to have kids by this age, and God doesn't work that way. God listens to us and loves us, but he has his own, it's in God's timing. And for me, when I was too impatient, I cared too much what other people were thinking, and I wanted to impress the world. And I did not allow God to be in control. And so one younger women that I mentor or spend time with, I'm like, don't rush it. Enjoy it. Enjoy these seasons. Enjoy the season of sleeping late. Enjoy the season of doing what you want to do. And then in the child rearing ages, enjoy every sweet moment of those babies, because they don't stay babies. Like, enjoy every season, but don't rush them, and let God have the lead. And then also, if you mess up, you messed up. You know what I mean? It's like God doesn't love us less if we're divorced. God doesn't love us less if we're not married. God doesn't love us less if we're, if children are not possible and things like that. And I think for me, I used to base God's love off of the men that were coming into my life, the
Mm.
miscarriages that I was having, you know, the jobs I didn't get, things like that. Where
Well, and I do think that Christian women struggle to equate marriage and kids and financial well-being and all of that with the blessing of God. And a lot of times in the Old Testament, certainly that was an indicator of God's blessing.
Mhm.
But you're so right that it is not a measuring stick of the love of God for us, those things in our lives, or his favor more so on us than
Mhm.
on someone else. But I do think the church has done a poor job of making every single season and stage of life important and valuable. And we've unintentionally, I won't blame the church's intent, but we've unintentionally elevated certain seasons and said that's what you're shooting for. And so for people that can't attain them, how are they to feel like God's on their side? So that's so
Mhm.
wise. And the don't rush it, that is a wise word, because we have a temptation to go, "Oh, this season is not fun. Let me get past it as soon as I possibly can."
Mhm. And and I'm so thankful for that season of divorce.
Yeah.
I was alone. I was living by myself, and I was rebuilding my life, but I was doing it with God holding my hand. And I did
Uh,
not rush that season, and I enjoyed it. And I so dove into every resource that God sent me, and so I've done that every season since. Of
uh,
okay, let me take this difficult situation and let me find God and let me celebrate God in this difficult situation and be of service to him in this difficult situation, or in a
uh.
one, whatever, good, bad, ugly. Now, because of my rock bottom and my spiritual awakening, now I just find God in everything.
You you named chapter 5 in your book, "Prayer is the GPS, not the spare tire." And I was like, I need to put this on a card where I can
Uh-huh.
see it. So when in your journey, or was there a specific season or time when you realized that prayer shifted from an emergency side of the road resource to daily oxygen intake for you? And what would you say to someone who's listening, who's still managing their life rather than living it surrendered? What role does prayer play in that?
Um, Again, in treatment, I was taught to do a morning devotion to
Mm,
connect to God, to wake up every day and surrender, and then sit down, pray, and do a little quiet time. And that laid the foundation of the life I have today. And so I do it every morning. And if I'm traveling or out of my routine and I don't do it, that hole appears, that hole starts coming
uh,
back. I start feeling uncomfortable in my skin and my peace is not as strong. And so to me, it's like breathing today. I wake up and, I talk about the three pillars: surrender, prayer, and service. And every morning I have to do that. I have to equip myself because I want the peace that I have found in recovery to stay and stick every day of my life. And prayer is just and I grew up and people did not mean it badly, but they would go, "Oh, all I can do is pray." That's the most powerful thing you can do. That is what God has given us to stay close to him, to intercede for others, to have that peace that passes all understanding. It starts with prayer. And that it, it, I want every day for my prayer life to be richer and richer and richer. And I have recently joined, my family and I have joined the church I grew up in. We've just joined my home church again. And it's been the sweetest, sweetest gift. And every Wednesday morning, I have joined this prayer group where the median age is about 75. And there is
Love it.
nothing sweeter. And I did it this morning. There is nothing sweeter than sitting in that sweet little Sunday school room and praying with those ladies. And it is the gift from God every Wednesday morning, because to me, that's my lifeline.
What does, for a woman who's going, so what does it look like to surrender to God in the morning? Just give an example of something that you might say that she could pick up and use.
Absolutely. God, I give you my day. You're in control. I'm not. Help me stay in your will. Amen.
It's good. When do you do that process?
When my feet hit the floor.
Yeah, it's good. The thing that I love that you've done with this book is that there's not, you don't preach that there's this one single breakthrough moment where suddenly everything was this way and now it's this way, never to be that way again. But you talk about a daily path. And we just talked about it. When your feet hit the floor, you have things that you do and you have rhythms that are built in. Why were those rhythms so important to you? You talk about being found. What does that look like on an ordinary Tuesday or on a day when you don't have your sweet Wednesday morning prayer group together? What does that rhythm look like for you?
So I'm not a morning person. So my feet hit the floor and
Me either.
I say it, I think it, but I got to get my coffee. And you've had my Southern pecan coffee. You know, I have to have my Southern pecan coffee.
Yes.
I get my coffee and I sit down and I open my Bible and a I have a prayer that I have written out, and it's in my book, and it's a formula that I use every morning. And I pray that prayer. I read my Bible, and then I start my day. Now, I also I try to do a walk every morning. And in that walk, I also talk to God. I don't listen to music. I just let it flow. And I spend time with him as well. But again, throughout the day, if I feel like I need to pray for somebody, if I feel doubt, if I feel insecurity, if I feel fear, I have a little prayer bench and it's behind me in my office / front parlor. And I hit my knees. And today, that's like breathing. And I'm so grateful that I have the time and the spirituality today and the wisdom that I get to spend all day talking to God. It is an honor. It is a pleasure. And I'll be, there I have in my book in chapter 7, I have the start your day over rule. Because some mornings we sleep late. My kid can't find his sneakers. We are yelling. There are tears.
Yeah.
And we are driving to school, and I turn the radio off and I'll say, okay, we're going to pray. We're going to start the day over. And there are some days that I'm not a good housekeeper. And my house gets cluttered, and my sweet husband likes things where they're supposed to be. And there might be a little disagreement over that. And we just apologize and we move on.
Yeah.
And so my life is not perfect. It is messy. It is free flowing. It is busy. It is hectic. But God is the underpinning. And so therefore, I give myself grace today when I used to not. And I'm so much healthier and happier because of it.
Mm. Tell people what God has done in your family life since they'll read about the 3 a.m. detox moment, but tell people what came after.
So, a year after I was sober, um, I met my husband, and within 3 months of dating, we just knew. He had
Mm.
just recently had a spiritual awakening. I had, and we just really connected. I actually used to sing in the choir next to his mother. And so it was just really
Oh,
sweet.
yes, so sweet.
Uh-huh. And so we're both only children, which is a good thing and a bad thing. We both think we're special,
Mm.
but luckily we fit very well together. Um, a year after that, we had our son Grant, who is now 9. He was born very premature, but by the grace of God,
Mm.
he is thriving today and is super healthy and happy. I have a 16-year-old stepdaughter, Cameron, who is also
Mm.
thriving and living her best life in Florida.
Mm.
Um, our family, we love to travel. That is our thing. We do a different state every year. And so I have 1 state left. My husband has 3. My 9-year-old has been to 26 states. Um,
Wow.
uh-huh.
That's more than one a year for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we kind of, out west you lump a couple together.
Yeah, yeah,
But
that's true.
we just have fun and we love each other. And um, you know, 6 years ago, I felt God calling me to write this book.
Mm.
And praise God, I sat down and did it. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It's one of the most rewarding things. I mean, it's top 3 hardest things I've ever done, top
Mm.
3 most rewarding things I've ever done. And God showed up through all of it and big. And my sweet husband has supported me and loved me and cheered me on through it all. And it's just, I'm so blessed today. I am so, so blessed.
Well, the title of the book is called Lost No More, which I love because it's a declaration. So, what do you want someone to do when he or she closes your book after reading all of it? What do you want them to feel, or what do you want them to do, or what do you want them to know after they read Lost No More?
I want them to create their daily path to God, to
Mm.
use my 3 pillars the way they feel God calling them to do, and to no longer beat themselves up for not spending enough time with God or not saying the right things or not being perfect, just to bask in his goodness and his love and his grace and his mercy, and just take it one day at a time, and
Mm.
just dig dig a little deeper every day, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you don't every day, don't beat yourself up. Just start over and keep going, because for me, there is this peace that comes from it that is better than anything that I have ever experienced in life. And I want that
Mm.
peace for them. So when they close that book, I want them to create that path to peace and just stay on it as best they can.
Mm. Well, I know that writing something, putting your life out on the page is not for the faint of heart. And I know that it costs you something when you do that. So I just want to say thank you for being willing to do that. I also want to ask you, this was not in the list of questions that I sent to you, but I just feel the Holy Spirit kind of pricking me. What would you say to a woman listening who thinks she may be too dependent on alcohol?
I would say um, go to a 12-step meeting, find
Mm.
one online, go sit in one and listen and see if it resonates. And if it does,
Mm.
find someone after the meeting that she is drawn to and ask her to sit down and talk with her.
Mm. Yeah.
And God will do the rest. God will do the rest, because I think the misconception in 12-step recovery is that it's woo woo, voodoo, whatever. It is,
Yeah.
the foundation is God. 12-step recovery only works because God is in every step. And
Mm.
so find a meeting, go to a meeting, find a woman you're drawn to, and just, you don't have to make a declaration. You know what I mean? Like, they're not asking
Mhm.
you to write down your name and become a member. People walk in and out every day. We have nursing students, we have med students that come in and want to better serve their patients. So we're used to people coming in
Mm.
just to see. I would suggest that. And I give the resources in my book for that as well.
Mm.
If they think, and I have questions to ask them themselves in my book, to just see and pray, because God will meet you. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are so many women in recovery today that we look different. We come from different aspects of life. We come from different backgrounds, but the commonality of it, we are so in love with one another and in recovery and God, that it's described like the Titanic sinking, how everyone came together on the boat,
Mhm.
on the lifeboats, and just worked together. And that's how recovery is. So
Yeah.
you don't have to look a certain way, you don't have to act a certain way. Just go, and God will take care of the rest.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, before we go, because I'm so grateful that we got to talk, before we go, I would love to ask you the question that I ask all my guests, and you know what's coming.
Yes.
So, if Ashley could design your perfect beautiful day, what would it look like from start to finish? No rules, no guardrails. What would your perfect beautiful day look like?
Well, I'm craving the beach right now. And so
Mm.
my husband is a mountain man, but this is my day. So I'm going to choose the beach. I would choose
Mhm.
a big house on the beach. I'm a more rustic than, I don't want it modern fancy. I want a rustic beach house, big, warm, friendly, on the beach. I want my whole family. I want my parents, my kids, his mom. I want lots of good food, lots of games. We love board games. We love cards, um, sunshine, water, quality time with each other, and someone else doing the cooking, of course.
Mhm.
There
Yes,
would definitely
amen.
there would definitely be a caterer with lots of good
Mhm.
seafood, and it would just be relaxing, easy quality time. And you know what? There would be somebody playing the guitar and us singing along. Like, I'm going to pull out all the stops: caterer, musician, um, you name it. Every board game and card game in my family has to play with me. And
Mm.
then a little bonfire at the end of the night and some s'mores and a good night's sleep.
Love it. That sounds like a perfect, beautiful day. I recommend that you do that as soon as possible. Um, I also want to say to those of you who are listening, Ashley is a gift and her story is a gift. And the road that she has walked has, in the sovereignty of God, been one that you now get to be the beneficiary of, and that you now get to benefit from all that God has done in her life and story. And if you are listening and you are wondering, does something in my life have mastery over me the way that alcohol did for Ashley? Maybe it's alcohol, but maybe it's one of the other things that she mentioned. I would encourage you, get her book, but also take the next right step to what it looks like to get help for that, to let it not be something that exists in isolation and in darkness, but kind of drug out into the light so that it can be healed and be whole. And so you can be healed and be whole. So if that's you, then see this as the kindness of the Lord to put Ashley's story in your path today. And I know it's her prayer, and it's also my prayer that you would find help and healing and wholeness as a result of it. So check the show notes, because everything that you can get from Ashley, do to stay connected with Ashley, follow Ashley, will be there for you. Ashley, thank you so, so much for sharing your story and for listening to the call to write the book.
Absolutely. And I always love spending time with you, my friend.
Thank you. Well, everybody, that concludes this episode of the Everything Made Beautiful podcast. Don't forget to be on the lookout for all the ways that God is making everything beautiful, including you. And we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Everything Made Beautiful. If this conversation encouraged you, would you take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend who might need to hear it? For more encouragement, Bible teaching, and to join Shannon's community, visit shannonsuzannescott.com and follow her on Instagram @ShannonSScott. We'll see you soon!